Now I'm just going to go ahead and apologize on my pronunciation in advance here, but the first game that we have in this collection is called Yote, and this one is a strategy game that is similar to checkers. Players are going to be taking turns deploying and moving their tokens out on the board, and whenever you just move one space adjacent to where you already are. But if you are next to an opponent's piece, you are able to jump over it in order to capture it. The difference here that makes it a lot different than checkers is that you're not going to have all your pieces out at the beginning of the game, and also anytime that you capture an opponent's piece, you have the opportunity to take any one of their other pieces out on the board, adding a whole other layer of strategy. Also, the camels are a lot cooler. First player to capture all their opponent's camels or leave their opponent with no valid moves wins the game. This next one is called Oware, and it's probably my favorite of the collection, and if you're familiar with the game Mancala, this probably looks familiar to you, and it does play similar to that game. But the difference here is that you're going to be starting the game with 4 seeds in each space out on the board. The side of the board towards you is your territory, and the side of the board towards your opponent is your opponent's territory. Players are just going to be taking turns back and forth, but on your turn you're going to be taking all the seeds from a single space on your side of the board, and then you're going to be moving counterclockwise, placing 1 seed in each space as you move around that board. And you can do this to move into your opponent's territory, and you'll just be continually placing seeds until you run out of seeds. But if the last seed that you place is in an opponent's space, and it also ends up causing that space to have exactly 2 or 3 seeds in it, then you get to capture those seeds, taking them into your own personal supply. This is important because the first player to gain 25 seeds is the winner of the game. But the fun doesn't stop there, and this is the aspect of the game that I really like, and that's that whenever you do this, it could have a cascading effect, because you're going to be looking one by one through all the spaces backwards that you just put a seed into, and if that space also has either 2 or 3 seeds in it, then you'll be able to take those as well. Like I said, you are going one by one backwards through the spaces, so if you ever run into a space that doesn't meet that, then you're going to be stopping there, and it's going to be the other player's turn. Mancala is a great game, and this one looks like a really fun spin on it. And the third game offered in this collection is called Dara, and this one is another strategy game. And the way that this game works is that players are each going to have their own pieces, and at the start of the game, you're going to be taking turns putting those pieces out onto the board. And then once all the pieces are placed, you're going to be taking turns moving a piece orthogonally. Your goal here is to try and get 3 of your pieces in a row, because that's going to do 2 things for you. It's going to prevent those pieces from being taken from you by your opponent, but it also allows you to take 1 piece from your opponent that isn't already in a row of 3. But of course, each player does have limited pieces here, so you're not just going to be able to leave all your pieces in those rows of 3 secured and safe from your opponent. You will have to break them up and venture out, making your pieces vulnerable, but also creating an opportunity to create more rows of 3. And that's important because it's the player that captures 10 of their opponent's pieces first that wins the game. And the final game offered in this collection is another one that I think looks like a lot of fun, and this one is called Fanorona, and this one is also a strategy game where players are going to be taking turns just moving 1 of their stones on their turn. The way that you move a stone is just by sliding it to an adjacent intersection point, and what you're trying to do here is capture your opponent's pieces. This game actually offers 2 different ways that you can do that. The first way is to move one of your pieces adjacent to an opponent's piece, but you also have to move your piece towards that piece, so it needs to be in the same line as your movement. And if you do that, you'll be able to take that piece. This means that if this yellow piece moved 1 space to the left here, it would end up taking this opponent piece because it is adjacent to them and also in the direction that they're moving. But they wouldn't be able to take this other piece that's adjacent to them because it wasn't in the direction that they're moving. But the second way that you can take an opponent's piece is when you are already adjacent to it, and then you move away from it directly in the opposite direction. So that example that I gave earlier with this yellow piece moving to the left would actually end up removing 2 different pieces because it's directly adjacent to this opponent piece here to the right, and then it's moving directly away from it, so that would allow them to take that piece, and then since they moved adjacent to that other piece, like I said before, they would also take that one. This could also cascade in taking even more pieces because whenever a stone is captured, all the opponent pieces continuously in a line beyond that stone are also taken as well. But those are the games in the Ludos Africa collection. If any of those sound interesting to you, you can go ahead and check them out, and I'll leave a link to the campaign in the description down below.